Hey, welcome to OT Asset Management Weekly. Today we are going to talk about what you can actually do with an OT asset inventory, and I'm going to break that into two parts. First, we are going to look at OT security use cases, and then in a follow-up session, meaning most likely next week, we are looking at use cases. So when it comes to OT security, there is a very strange situation. I think pretty much every OT security expert would agree to the idea that you must have an OT asset inventory, even though basically nobody has one because your outdated Excel spreadsheets, they are an excuse for an OT asset inventory. They are not a real one. So everybody agrees to that, but few people would be able to tell you why. Since you're not going to assemble an asset inventory for its own sake. So there must be some eternal benefit from it. And we're going to look at those benefits today. And if you think about OT security, I would say there are various different areas where an OT asset inventory is essential, but we're going to be very specific. We are going to focus on the first use case, which is vulnerability management. So that's a very easy one, because the reality is if you don't have a detailed, contextualized OT asset inventory, you won't be able to do OT vulnerability management, as simple as that. Let's look at some data. So this is what your OT asset inventory would look like in OTBase. Or it already comes with a lot of context information, such as the location, the network association with those devices. But we're going straight to the vulnerability management workflow in OTBase, and we do that by selecting Workspace in the main menu, and boom, there we are. There we are directly in the table of all the CVEs that affect our installed base with known exploits. This is because I have selected this checkbox right here, KEV only. And so this is already perfectly matched against your installed base. There is no probability involved. It tells you exactly what affects your installed base. And let's just look at an example. So as you will probably know already, in OTBase, if you want to see additional information, we just pick the first one here. You just do a double click. That opens a new browser window with additional details. And why are we opening a new browser window? Because this allows you to open multiple windows and check information side by side. So this is a fairly recent one, published October 9th, so just 2 weeks ago. And let's see what we got. An attacker was able to achieve code execution in the containers, blah, blah, blah. This vulnerability affects Firefox versions lower than 131, blah, blah, blah. And oh, this is bad, right? This is a critical vulnerability with a base score of 9.8 out of 10. They almost hit the jackpot. There is a known exploit. And down here, I see which devices are affected. And one thing I would like to point out here is, again, there is no probability, no likelihood, not all the nonsense that you see in other platforms that assume that actually you would check then if it's even real. So OTBase has done that already. And the simple reason why OTBase does not pester you with probabilities and likelihoods is because it does an accurate discovery, which you cannot do if you rely on passive sniffing. So in this case, since you're talking about a Windows application, meaning Firefox. This is even something that many of those threat detection platforms don't even bother to show you, because, well, you would actually need to remote into that Windows PC or run an agent in order to get that software configuration of the PCs, which is absolutely vital. I mean, let's be real. If you think ransomware is a threat to OT, then the first thing that you need to explore is your Windows boxes. If you exclude them, well, it seems to be a Windows box and probably outdated Windows 7 or something, that's not good enough. So let's go deeper here. So I see there's the two of these devices in the Flatrock plant. Why are they affected? I click on the eye. And then this box has Firefox version 64 installed. That is pretty outdated. So it's caught by this vulnerability. And certainly we can get additional detail by opening the device profile of this affected system, which opens up this new browser window. And then you get all those additional details. I see, this is critical for engineer. The exposure is public. That's bad. So this box is surfing the internet, and it is affected by this particular nasty vulnerability from 2 weeks ago. Isn't that interesting? So, and then in security, you get all the additional details. You get the patch history. You get all the information that you need to assess the situation. And all of this is only possible because of the inventory in the background, where most of the connections are made automatically. So this is why you do need an OT asset inventory, a contextualized, complete, comprehensive OT asset inventory for your vulnerability management. So this is how things look like. You get the data flow, you get the software configuration, you get the patch status, and all the other good stuff. So let's check something out. So this is just about the vulnerabilities that you would probably have to deal with. And if you want to go a step further in the direction of remediation, you use this table, where now I'm no longer seeing CVEs, I'm seeing individual vulnerabilities. And that is always a combination of a CVE with a particular device, such as a software instance. So that's a CVE instance, if you will. In our sample database, it's roughly 900,000 vulnerabilities. Don't be shocked, because that's a real thing. That is something that you're also going to see in your environment if you bother to also include the Windows boxes in your vulnerability management. If you don't do that, there is not even a point in starting your OT vulnerability management, because the vast majority of the non-vulnerabilities affect Windows computers, the operating system itself, and then all the applications that you have installed, all the components that you have installed, ActiveX controls and all that nonsense. So therefore, you must have some pretty damn good visibility into those Windows boxes, especially when it comes to ransomware. So don't tell me you're scared about ransomware and then you ignore your Windows boxes. That totally doesn't make sense. However, let's just look at another area. So we just randomly pick one of these vulnerabilities here. So that's about an actuator. What have we got here? This is about a PowerFlex 525, and the vulnerability is, let's see, denial of service. And the base core is also 9.8. That's bad. So the point is, this table that we're working on right here is our entry into remediation. Because I can now select those vulnerabilities that I plan to remediate. And I usually do that by exercising some filtering, some prioritization, etc. That is very simple to do in OT-based, because you have your criticality ratings here in this column. You have your base score, your attack vector, attack complexity. So you can use this to carve out a result set that you then pass to remediation. And I'll show you how that is done right away. So you can also limit this to a particular location, for example, right? Because in many cases, when it comes to firmware updates, etc., the remediation needs to be done by local staff. And therefore, it would be a good idea to select in this scope selector here something that would only affect the Houston plant, for example, because I want to set up a remediation task for these guys. And then I save this result set here with that managed views functionality. Once that I've done that, I can pass that to a remediation task and tell the respective users, usually control engineers, well, this is in this case down here, my assigned user is my friend Rangit. I tell them, well, you need to fix all those vulnerabilities here, and I have set a time frame for you until somewhere beginning of November. So the point here is for those remediation tasks, you usually also need additional details such as the location. And therefore, where is the location? It's in your asset inventory. It's a context dimension of your asset inventory. So this is how that works for vulnerability management. Now, let's look at some other use cases, OT security related, when it comes to using an OT asset inventory. Vulnerability management, we have that in the bag. If you don't have an OT asset inventory, you cannot do it. It's a waste of time. But there is more. The next use case that I want to show you is when you think more about protection and prevention. It is the idea that you should set up some policies that allow you to spot weaknesses even before the next critical vulnerability hits the plant floor. And one way you can do that is in the search page of OT-Base. So let me give you a very simple scenario. You could be interested in identifying all those Windows boxes. Again, you're talking about Windows boxes, not about actuators, that haven't been patched for X number of days. Like, haven't been patched for a year, a full year. So everybody in OT security would realize, oh, that's a problem. If that Windows box hasn't seen any patch for a full year, then I need to do something about it. And this is very simple to pull off in OT-Base. In that search page, look at that criterion that you have here, days since last patch, more than 365. Search. Bang. There is your result list. And this tells me right away about all the Windows boxes in my universe throughout all the various sites that haven't seen a patch for more than a year. Most likely something I want to act on. And as practitioners in the audience will know, this is not rare. This is a common occurrence. But you know, you want to address this at some point in your OT security journey. You want to get proactive and identify those boxes and then try to do something about it. And it all starts with the inventory that tells you, this is your list. This is what you need to act on. You can also turn that into a nice report By the way, that is done automatically. If you save that search, OTBase will automatically create a report for you. And let's just see where we're. Devices that haven't been patched for a year. Double click, there's our report. So it also comes with some nice stats. You would see, for example, up here, the guys in North Carolina. Yeah, they're the worst. and along with some other things like virtual machine, desktop, etc., you get the timeline that shows you any fluctuations. That is also a very nice feature, that the filter that you use in the search page is dynamic. So anytime that you would then actually patch one of those boxes, boom, it would fall out of that criterion, and in the timeline you would see a decrease in the number. In the same way, if you fail to patch other devices that are not covered by your initial result set, then they will be added automatically to that result set. So that's a very convenient and powerful feature. And then here is your list of devices that match this criterion, and this is something that you want to address. So this is by the way, the reporting page. The top half is a dashboard where you can assign any of those reports, and then the lower half is allows you to select any of those reports that you simply by saving a search. Okay, next thing I want to show you is in the workspace, the audits section of the workspace, where you can define configuration policies. Also very important when you get proactive. This is what you need to do. You need to be proactive. You must get away from addressing cyber risk individually for each individual device. You cannot actually do a full risk assessment for each individual device. You don't have the capacity to do that. So therefore, you need to bundle problem sets and address them in one go. And one way to do this is to define configuration policies where, besides all considerations about risk, trust me, risk is a bit overvalued in the whole OT security discussion. If you want to make a difference, you also need to factor in other approaches. And that would be something like, well, we all know that Adobe Flash, as an example, is a pain in the ass when it comes to vulnerabilities. So wouldn't it be really useful if we would define a configuration policy where we state on our Windows boxes on the plant floor, Adobe Flash must not be installed? Or you could even limit that to engineering stations if you wanted to. Very simple to do, because it's using the same logic as I've shown you earlier from the search page. So once that you have your inventory set, then everything becomes very smooth, right? Because you can use automation, you can use the filtering capabilities, the algorithms. And this is why, if you have such a nice inventory, OT security turns into a data science, where you use things like data mining to identify how you could achieve the best reduction of the attack surface for the effort that you are capable of investing. So let's see how that works. Adobe Flash Player policy must not have Flash on OT devices. You already see here a ratio of compliant to non-compliant devices. 76 are compliant. Let me give you an idea how this is actually defined by editing this policy. So this is obviously about prohibited software. This is the section right here. And in this section, you can identify the products that you don't want to see, that are forbidden, by using those wildcards. So in this example, I've used Adobe as a vendor with a wildcard, because sometimes they use Adobe systems or something like that, and we want to have a catch-all filter. Then of all the Adobe Flash, of all the Adobe products where Flash is in the name, because again, the name is sometimes spelled differently. And we also don't care about the version, because whatever version, it's crap when it comes to vulnerabilities. So this is how you define such a policy. I could add other things like any required software. I could limit that to specific hardware or something, but we don't want to do. Look at the results. Adobe Flash Player. And then in this profile, we see all the non-compliant devices. For example, here in our Flatrock site, we have 8 of those. We see right away what those are. Again, I could turn this rather simply into a remediation task and tell my guy at the Flatrock facility, or just remove that stuff. We are not supposed to have that. The other thing that is very neat, once that you assign a policy, then it is also exposed in those individual device profiles. Let me show you how that looks like. So if I drill down any of those devices that are affected, I have this compliance section down here, and I see the various policies that are relevant for this device. This is done automatically, this assignment. And I see that this device is not compliant in respect to the Adobe Flash Player policy. And it's also non-compliant in respect to outdated OS and other things. But it is compliant in respect to another policy, which is the TeamViewer policy in our sample set here. You're not supposed to have TeamViewer installed, and it does not. Congratulations. So just to give you an idea that how this ties into each other, and I would say the recipe for success at the end of the day is your comprehensive contextualized OT asset inventory. Without that, all of this would not be possible. Now here we are going back to the reporting section. Once that you have created such a policy, not only do you see it in the workspace, but you also see it in the reporting section, where you can also slap it on the dashboard. Again, you get additional details. I see our guys in Durham, they have 18 non-compliant devices. Charlotte has 17, and then I could do something with that information. The timeline points out compliant devices, or number of compliant devices in blue, non-compliant in brown or red. And then you get all the details about the non-compliant devices. So very, very important use case for OT security, because this allows you to become proactive, and it allows you to bundle problem sets, which will increase your efficiency by so much, right? Because if you have to examine every individual system, you're not going anywhere. It's just too much. You don't have the capacity. So this gives you some ideas. Finally, as the third OT security related use case, let's talk about network segregation. At some point in time, you will realize that without network security, you'll go nowhere. So let's try to explain that rather quickly. I've talked about the CVEs, the vulnerability management already. However, it's not enough. Why? Because the vast majority of vulnerabilities that you factually have in an OT environment never show up as CVEs. Never show up as CVEs. No, they don't. Because this is about insecure by design. All your various industrial protocols, be it Modbus, be it Ethernet IP. They don't come with authentication and authorization or encryption. So therefore, once that you are in a process network, you don't need any CVEs. And what does that tell you? That tells you that at some point, and rather sooner than later, you must go for network segregation. You can only do that if you have a very good idea of what your network architecture looks like. And guess what? This is also part of your OT asset inventory. How cool is that? So in OTBase, you find a network inventory right here in the sidebar. So we give you different looks on your inventory. And one of those views, if you will, is the network inventory. And the network inventory lists all your individual networks that have been discovered with their devices, with all the endpoints, like so. And it also comes with a topology. And now, certainly, this is something that you must have in order to start your remediation efforts. In addition to that, you also must have data flow analytics, which I briefly touched on earlier when I showed you all that device. It does communicate with the internet. That is also baked into OTBase. And when you put those capabilities together, you have a very solid foundation for your network segregation efforts. So let me show you how that works in a little bit more detail. For every network, you can assign a network group with a color code, as you see here, and you can also assign your zones. So your zoning can be reflected in your model. And this will certainly go a long way for arriving at a plan on what you should actually segregate. And let me be very, very clear about one thing. You don't use the Purview model for your segregation efforts. If somebody tells you, let's just use Purview, level 0, 1, 2, you know right away that person doesn't know what they're talking about. That's probably the worst segregation strategy that you can imagine. And we don't have time to go into detail about this right here. One thing that I want to show you rather quickly is I could select multiple networks in this table here and see how they are actually connected. So this is all logical. This is layer 3, what you see here. And then when I do the topology is layer 1. This is physical. And now, this is totally interactive. Like you can do your drill down, your zoom in, etc. And now we're going to use a layout that overlays our layer 3 networks, okay, on the layer 1 physical architecture. So here I have network number 1, where all the actuators are in, all my VFDs, and here I have network number 2 with controllers and stuff. And this diagram shows me right away the conduits. There they are. Just like that. So guess what? This switch here, so that would be pretty important for my segregation efforts. This is the conduit. And this will probably give you an idea how you can approach a network segregation project. You need, I see, I forgot to show you. Oh, so let's go back. Once more. This is the network diagram for 2 networks combined, 2 layer 3 logical networks. And network number 1, network number 2. And here I can clearly see the conduits. There is your conduit. There it is. And when I want to see additional details, I do a double click. and I see the port list for that switch and so forth. And that is your foundation, among other things like the data flow, which I've shown you earlier. This is the foundation for a solid segregation effort, because if you want to really achieve additional security, you need all that additional detail, and it all comes from your OT asset inventory. The more information, including context information, the asset inventory has, the more effective your OT security efforts are going to be. Or to put it another way around, if your OT asset inventory is shit, your OT security efforts will be shit. They will be a waste of time. And the more data you have in that foundational asset inventory, the more you're also going to be able to leverage data mining. And this is going to yield so much insight that finally, oh damn, we have always worked in the wrong direction, and but now we have the opportunity to actually turn things around and become efficient. Okay, so next time we'll do a follow-up and look at engineering use cases for OT asset inventory. Same place, same time. See you next time. Bye-bye.